Ladies and gentlemen, it appears as though we have a new contender on the scene for retro emulation handhelds. Today, we're going to be looking at and reviewing the Anbernic RG556. The model that I have is this lovely transparent blue color. I tried to combine the word transparent and blue into one super word of transparent, I believe is what I was going to say. This model, if you go with just the 8 gigs of RAM and 120 internal storage, you're going to be looking at $229. I believe the version they sent me had a 128 gigabyte SD card that jumped it up to $244. Now this, as you can see, no games. Well, that one does indeed have games there with it on that SD card. We scroll down here and look at these specifications. We're going to cover a lot of this stuff in the video, but it is that Unisoc T820 5.48-inch AMOLED screen. Great to see. We're going to look at that screen a lot. Android 13. And of course, since it runs Android, it can install and run a great many Android games. All that stuff being said, we're going to jump back in time to when I first unboxed this thing, show some initial testing, some setup, some first impressions. Then we're going to talk about how this thing actually performs at the end. All right, guys, we have the Anbernic RG556. The 35XX is one of my favorite handhelds of all time, so I'm really excited to see exactly how this thing is. What do we have here? Oh, this looks like an SD card that was just sort of floating in here, and it doesn't inspire a ton of confidence. Set the handheld aside as well. Let me just make sure that there's nothing else in this box worth note. It looks like a screen protector was included as well as a manual, and I'm going to guess that this contains a USB A to C cable. It's like I'm psychic or something. Let's set this out of the way. And here is the handheld itself. I love that that's just a permanent imprint on this thing now. Oh, baby. I forgot that I asked them for the transparent blue. Man, that looks so much better than I was expecting it to look. Wow, look at this thing. I love it. I'm absolutely in love already. Oh, man. It's kind of got like a smooth, I don't know how to describe that. It's like a smooth texture to it. This might be really good. I don't know what operating system this thing runs, so that's going to be an important step for this thing as well. Let's look at the buttons. A, B, X, Y. Not particularly loud. Feels okay. Not particularly clicky either, but not bad. The joysticks are a little bit small, right? So the actual travel that they have is really, really, really small. So like a first-person shooter, probably not going to be great on here. D-pad feels very similar to the face buttons. These feel like a rubber membrane. These buttons are much, much clickier. Bumper's nice and clicky. Triggers are pretty decent as well. Power and then volume up top. Headphone jack and USB on the bottom. Let's go ahead and I guess power this thing up and let's see what we have here. That was a very, very loud vibration motor, and I'm going to guess that that indicates that we are running Android. Holy mackerel, there's lights on the joysticks as well. Okay. All right, so we are in English. Start use. It's reconfiguring system. This is sort of an interesting little splash screen. And while it's doing that, we can see that right there is where that SD card is going to go. So we'll address that here in a little bit, see what's actually on this card. Okay, configuration setup is done. Please click. 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 Okay. And it is a touchscreen. And man, I want to say something straight out of the gate. This screen is really, wow. This is not a bad looking screen at all. Is this an OLED screen? I should have probably talked about this earlier on in the video. Some of this stuff will be shot out of order, so maybe I've given you some more details on this screen. But I got to tell you, this thing looks really good, and this is running Android 13. Looks like we already have some little quick settings up here to mention. What is this? A normal, okay, game mode. That's good. Key map. Let's jump into that. Okay, love to see that. So for certain Android games that do not have controller support, you're going to be able to move these buttons around and map them onto the screen so that when you press that button, it's going to simulate touching on that screen. So that is really cool as well. CPU, so there's a high mode and an auto mode. There's a fan, which you can put on auto or off or on. That is on strong. Maybe you can hear this. We'll have to do some testing and see if that actually makes a significant difference in the performance. Ambient light off and on, so that's going to be these guys over here. NS mode off and on. Okay, so Xbox mode. Okay, so this is probably changing the mapping of the buttons over here. So this would be Nintendo mode. If you change it to Xbox mode, it's probably just flipping the ABXY around to be like an Xbox controller. And it looks like this is a pretty simple launcher. They've got a bunch of stuff already pre-installed. Look at all of these emulators that are already on here. Let's see what these buttons do. So here's a little Anbernic icon, and it looks like that is launching into a front end, which we need to give file permission to. Let's go back into that. So it looks like they've built their own front end, and that's probably why all those emulators are installed, because it probably just like links into those. It says down here X to scan for new game. I doubt that there are any games already on here, but I'm betting that there's a whole bunch of games on this SD card. So let's install that really quickly. Put it in the wrong way, and it is, oh dear, hang on. All right, we're good. Let's scan for new games and hit confirm. All right, and we have some games, almost 500 NES games. Sega Master System, there are a ton of games on here. Let's see if we jump into PSP. What I want to do is let's jump into Vice City Stories and see how well this thing handles it. Let's go ahead and allow, and that probably messed that up. Let's back out. Those speakers. Probably can't have that playing because it's going to be copyright striked, but speakers are not bad. Let's jump on the old motorbike. This first section here tends to be fine when it comes to performance. It tends to be when you get out of this area and you start really driving around that things start to bog down on other handhelds that I've tested here recently. So we're going to get out here, we're going to cruise around, and so far, so good. I'm not having any issues at all. And let me see if I can figure out how to get into the settings. Okay, so that button took me into the settings. And what I want to do, this is probably going to be mapped as X. Great. Rendering resolution is currently just native PSP. Let's go up to 2X resolution and see if that looks any better and if it's able to actually perform well. That looks a ton better. And we appear to be cruising. Yeah, this is actually running pretty much locked at 30 FPS, and we're at 2X native resolution, which begs the question, can you take me higher, in the wise words of one Scott Stapp? Let's go, you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. Let's go to 4X native resolution, which is probably way more than I need to do. Honestly, I'm not sure I can even really see a difference there. But guys, we are still locked at 30 FPS. This is a very, very good sign. That was poorly timed. If you hit the little SE button down here, it does bring you into some settings. And the first thing I'm going to do is there a way to get rid of that clicking sound? That might not actually be the app that's doing that. That might be something that we need to go into our system settings here. Sound and vibration. Touch sounds, let's turn that off. Okay, much better. It looks like you can change your emulators. Yes, you can actually disable some of the emulators. That's great. There's going to be quite a few of these that I'm going to probably want to disable. Again, I kind of want to hammer home to you guys. This screen looks really, really good. All right, so we've got Wi-Fi turned on. We're signed into my Google account, and we can see the Play Store is here. I don't like that it's using the 3-button navigation either. So let's see if we can change that. Let's go into System, and then it's probably under Navigation Bar, and we're going to say, okay, so that's not cool. So our options appear to be Navigation Bar or nothing. Oh, wait, no, I'm wrong. If you go into Gestures, we have here system navigation. Let's go to gesture navigation. I'm going to like that better. I think that's the way I want to go. Let's jump into the Play Store really quickly, and we're going to search. And I actually want you just to hear something really quickly. That vibration motor is really, really loud. Check out CPU-Z and see what it says here. So this says it is a T820 8-core processor. So that would be like a Unisoc processor. It looks like a Mali G57. GPU looks like about 8 gigs of RAM, 1080p screen, which again, I can't get over how good this screen actually does look. Under system, is this thing actually rooted? We might have to check that as well. Overall, I think that we're looking really quite good here. Something that we're going to need to do to clean up this launcher is go into the home settings and let's turn on the app drawer. And that's going to allow us to, I think, yes, remove icons from the home screen that we don't just need all of these icons here. What is this, an iPhone? And as I'm doing this, I'm getting really annoyed with the vibration motor going off constantly. So we're gonna have to go ahead and do maybe no vibration and haptics. No touch feedback? Yeah, that's gonna be much better. Let's look at CX File Explorer and see if we can see what's going on here. What's actually on this device already. Is there a ROMs folder, PSP? I don't see anything. So let's go to the SD card. And yes, indeed, that is where all of those ROMs are. So hopefully I will have talked about this in the beginning part of this video. That may be something you have to pay extra for. I don't know if they just sent that for me or if it's something you can do or not, but that is where my ROMs were. You may not get that. Let's jump into wallpaper and style. I do like that we have this little live wallpaper, dark mode all day long. I don't really think it's for me though. Let's see if they have any other wallpapers. That's cool. There's a screenshot of Minecraft. That's a little bit small. Let's see what this looks like. Oh, that's adorable. Speaking of Minecraft, for better or worse, I am Old Man Jenkins. All right, that's just how this works. This screen is not only really nice and vibrant, it's also very bright, and that's probably because it was cranked up all the way. I was sitting here wondering why this thing was as bright as it was. All right, now that everything's loaded in, this is not too bad. And actually, let's just kind of fly around. I forgot that I was in creative mode last time I was messing around here. This is running really well. And again, you know, I mentioned earlier that we have these options to potentially speed things up, and I don't have any of those things actually turned on. Let's go to high performance mode. And let's turn this on to cool. Is that smoother? I mean, it's loading in all the new assets and everything, so maybe it is, maybe it's not. Hard to say. At any rate, though, it's running it. It's running it just fine. So we can hit that button, and I guess that just takes us back to the launcher, hit it again, and now we're home. So here's a weird thing that happens when you're playing GameCube games. If you bring up your little menu over here, sometimes the screen, you just saw it there, will have this like grayish overlay over top of it. There we go. So just hit B, and it's just like got this gray look to it. And you just have to kind of move around until it goes away. And then instead of hitting B, what you want to do is actually just tap in the screen. It's weird, kind of inconsistent, annoying, but it's not that big of a deal, I guess. So in terms of emulation performance overall, this thing is pretty darn impressive. It's not the most powerful thing in the world, but what I found was what you have pre-installed on there basically ends with the Wii, and that should kind of tell you where you're going to be. From the Wii down, anything older than the Wii, I think is going to run pretty darn well. In fact, a lot of GameCube and PS2 games can run at 2x native resolution, which is really, really quite impressive. Now, when you do play some Wii games, a lot of them, you're going to want to be sticking with that 1x, the standard native resolution, and some of them may struggle just a little bit to run smoothly. I do know that some people will, in fact, run the PAL versions of some of these ROMs because instead of running at 60 hertz, 60 FPS, they will run at 50, and that is easier for this thing to hit. That's not something I've tested, but I have heard it said. Now, personally, I did not see a huge improvement or a huge difference when I had the fan on versus when the fan is off. Nor did I see any real difference when that performance mode was on the high mode or off. I don't actually know what's going on there. Maybe it's clocking it a bit higher. I didn't actually check to see if the clock speed was changing, but at the end of the day, I don't really see a big difference with these things off or on, so you can probably just do whatever you want to do with them. I almost forgot to mention this, but it does indeed come pre-rooted. What you're going to do with that is really like up to you. Probably nothing. Let's take a look at some cloud gaming here with Xbox Game Pass. Yeah, great, go away. No notifications, please. Let's go over here to the cloud tab and we'll just grab something that I was playing a couple of weeks back and see how this works. In theory, these controls should just work out of the box. And if that's the case, we should be getting console quality graphics streamed to this device. Now, I am in the same room as one of my my router hubs. It's a mesh system, so one of my routers is in this room, and it's a very fast connection. Man, look at those colors. I mean, you're not going to be able to tell this from the video, but trust me, they are just absolutely vibrant as all get out. I think I could absolutely play this. There's a little bit of artifacting going on because, again, this is streaming over the cloud. But this is actually really not bad at all, guys. Look at how much of a delay is there. I mean, you can see it, but again, in a slower paced game like this, you could absolutely play this game streaming. And again, I keep saying this, but the screen just looks fantastic. These colors are so vibrant. The difference between an LCD screen and an AMOLED on something like this is really, really striking. The only issue that I ran into while I was trying to play this game was that I was trying to use my trigger to do a thing, and it wasn't working. As you can see now, it is working, and that is because I had to go into that quick setting and change it over to Xbox mode, and that allowed the controls to work properly. The Game Pass app expected an Xbox controller, so I gave it one, and it works great. We'll take a second here and get a really good listen to these speakers. This is maxed out volume. They're bottom firing. I think that's pretty darn solid, guys. So I spent some time trying to get the controls working on PUBG, and I never really have been able to get it quite where I want it to be. See how kind of herky-jerky and just strange that is? You have to really push the sensitivity down to make it even kind of usable, but even then, you can see how it's jumping in this really kind of weird way. And I've got the sensitivity turned down really, really low. Let's take it all the way down to like 10%. I mean, it's getting smoother, but now we're so slow that somebody ran up on us, like we wouldn't even be able to like turn around to, to fight them. And like this, it's just so herky-jerky. And see, I just fired my gun for some reason, and I don't even really know why that is. I think sometimes this stick makes it all the way up and hits the fire button. So I've not had like a ton of luck with that particular thing. I'm sure there are some games where it's going to work better than others. The performance of the game is fine. The controls, the mapping, this bit of software, I'm sure there are some games it's going to work just fine in. They've got their little like pre-made configurations. PUBG did not have one. In my experience, this kind of thing is usually pretty hit or miss. Overall, I really, really quite like this thing. The controls are pretty darn solid. For most of the games I'm going to play, they work great. If you're a first-person shooter player, the sticks are probably a little bit too small for you to get a whole lot of use out of, at least in my opinion. But by and large, it is really, really very solid. I'm going to drop a couple of links into the description. Both of them will be affiliate links, which means if you click them and then you buy something, I will earn commission off of that. One will be to mechdiy.com. The other will be to amazon.com. And of course, mechdiy is who actually sent me this device over for review. As always in my reviews, no money exchange hands for the production. And they are seeing this video at the exact same time as you guys. So they didn't know what I was going to say until they saw the video. Guys, thanks for watching. Subscribe for more content like this. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.